Welcome to Beyond the Deck, a production of Gore Calm in which companies present their PowerPoint decks to shareholders. Today's topic is an eye-opener because most people do not know that silicon metal manufacturing is the largest emitter of CO2 on a per-ton basis on the planet. Our guest, HPQ Silicon, is on the verge of disrupting the manufacturing process of Fumed Silica, which uses silicon metal and is used in everyday products such as cosmetics, toothpaste, and powdered foods. So how disruptive is their process? Energy consumption, 93% lower. Greenhouse gases, 84 to 88% lower. Hydrogen chloride gas release, completely eliminated. And CapEx, which in today's world is almost important or just as important as the greenhouse side, 93% less to construct these kind of plants. And more than just talk, the fume silica industry has taken notice as evidenced by multiple NDAs with leading manufacturers. And then last week, the company signed an NDA with the industrial group, again undisclosed, to explore a fume silica plant joint venture for the construction potentially of 1,000-ton per year fume silica reactor. And then today's press release, I'm going to read the headline: final assembly of HPQ Fume Silica reactor pilot plant has started. Commissioning scheduled for Q2 2024. Bernard, welcome to Beyond the Deck, my friend.
Thank you, George. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. So today, we're not doing a Beyond the Press release. We're not going to do a deep dive in today's press release, even though to me, it's a big one. And from the reaction of shareholders, they're extremely happy with this news, especially with a date there of commissioning scheduled for the second quarter of 2024. So somewhere between April 1st and June 30th. But I would like to ask you for just a couple of words on it. And then we're going to do the Beyond the Deck specifically for just that one part of the company, Fume Silica. But a couple of words about today's press release, Bernard, and why it's so important.
Well, I think I've said it in multiple interviews in our discussion, okay? We're now really down to one last milestone that we need to reach, which is validating or confirming or demonstrating, I don't know which word of the vocabulary you want to use, that we can make fume silica in one step using our proprietary process. Ancillary to that, okay, is going to be our ability to make a higher BAT surface material. We have made a material that's around the 150 mark, okay? So we know how much that sells for. We know those issues. We know if we bring it up to 200, then all the economics become even better. If we bring it up to 300, then, you know, it's gangbuster. So you go to from 5 to 7, from 5 to 8, 8 to 10 in the prices, but our costs don't change. So that's what really makes it very interesting. But just still at 5, we have something in our hands, and shareholders of HPQ have something in the company that is truly unique, which is a new process to make fume silica in one step, and that's unheard of. And as we get closer, you know, people that are doubting, trying to come up with excuses or whatever reason for whatever they're looking at doing, we'll have to sit down and realize that this process is working. This is why we signed the previous week before we signed the NDA with the company. Sorry about that.
Do you have just small question? Then we're going to switch over the deck. You've already kind of showed this with your QRR. Do you have any reasonable concerns, reasonable doubts that you're not going to be able to scale up to pilot plant and then scale it up to a full commercial plant? Do you have any reasonable concerns outside of we always have some concerns that something might not go right, but, you know, is there anything lingering out there that keeps you up at night? Or are you and Pyrogenesis, who's your technology partner here, fairly confident it's just fait accompli? Let's get the pilot plant and then let's get to, you know, full commercial plant.
Well, it's never fait accompli until you've actually done it. But there's nothing really um, that makes me not sleep at night with regard to the scalability of the process. There's other things that don't make me sleep at night, but not that. And what's really interesting, I think, is the reason why I'm really pushing, I'm really happy to be presenting our deck, is that I want people to realize that although this is a word that I'm not allowed to use by the regulator, it's called disruptive. Don't say it. Don't say that I said it. But
Same thing.
basically, huh?
Disruptive.
Discreetly. Yeah, yeah. So, but it is in that case. You know, you don't usually have an industrial process, okay, that reduces so much the cost. And now what do we need
Unheard of.
to do is basically find a place where we're going to start building the plant, get access to cheap hydroelectricity to do it, and get access to quartz, which is an abundant material. Once we have all those issues resolved, then it will gradually become a money generating machine. Now, how long before somebody comes and says, you know, we would like to have our hands into this? I don't know. But I think, you know, 2024 is really the pivot toward that. And it's going to be a fun year. At the same time, the interest rate are going to start to go down in the middle of the year as we come into it. So there's going to be more and more, you know, more and more people looking for projects like we have. And I can tell you from the reception I'm having when I'm doing on one-on-one with investors, when I'm presenting this deck, it's very positive. Very, very positive.
All right, Bernard, then I can't think of a better segue than to go onto the deck if you get this kind of response
Yes.
from investors around the world, wherever you're presenting it. Let's
Mhm.
present it to shareholders and let them see what the great reaction is all about. So pop on the deck if you can there.
Yes, sir. Green engineering fume silica. The reason why we're doing a specific deck just for a fume silica is because um, it is such an important part of what we're doing, where we are right now, and it's going to be it is our first technology that's going to be monetized. So this is why we're putting it in a special unique place, and we
Wow.
will do the same thing for our other initiative that we're working on. So let's just go through this. Typical disclaimer, you guys all know about it, forward-looking statements. Okay. Basically, HPQ's plan is to develop and monetize green engineering solution. What does that mean? Is we're basically looking at doing in a much more sustainable way the material that everybody needs. Right? The reason why we're putting green fume silica technology at the forefront is because by the end of this year, by the end of 2024, okay, it will start to be a commercial venture. And I'll explain it through the deck. It's not, it is now the time, it is going to be during 2024 that transition is going to come along. And with the press release we announced today, we are on target for doing it. So let me go through this for you guys to understand. First of all, quick overview of your fume silica. Fume silica is a white, fluffy, colloidal microparticle. Basically, it's one of those sandwich material that everybody uses. It's used in paint coating, adhesive, silence, silicone rubber, pharmaceutical, cosmetic, battery gel, and a lot of other material. And it's basically due to its unique properties. It's a white, fluffy powder that is very, very light. It is used as an adhesive, a sealant. It's used on all those things. The primary driver of the fume silica market is an increased demand from end users. But, and that's a key point, but the environmental issue associated with conventional manufacturing process to make fume silica are hindering market growth. Okay?
How is it hindering, Bernard?
Because you can't build plants to make it anywhere, and you'll see that later in the presentation. Okay, it is something where it's not that easy to build a plant to do this. It's first of all, it's very expensive. So even if there was more demand, more variation of the product that the people were interested in doing into, it might not be there. So in all the literature, in all the material, one of the hindering aspects is really the environmental issue behind it. So the key players in this market are Evonik Industry in Germany, Cabot Corporation in the US, Walker Chemi in Germany, Tokoyama Corporation in Japan. So those are really the big boys playing in this.
I'm going to ask. I
Fume,
know you can't answer, but I'm going to ask. Any chance those four? Those are some of the NDAs we've got out there. I know you can't answer, but I got to ask.
People can make their own judgment call on that.
Fair enough.
I'm going to stay clear of that one. Okay, in 2000, sale of Fumed Silica was about 1.3 billion. As I said, the sale is really injuring by the way it's manufactured. People will understand. But the key point is this is a market that's growing at 5% even right now, compounded every year. So 5% of that is still going to be require a lot of new Fumed Silica capacity to come online. And this is where our technology really is going to have a disruptive advantage, to use your technique. So to get this down, in 2021, we signed an agreement with PyroGenesis covering the acquisition of new Fumed Silica IP, its development and future commercialization of silica material. Because eventually, our technology will be able to make more products. So it will grow to just the Fumed Silica, to the entire what's called the commercial silica material, which is fumed, precipitated, and fused silica. Those are our products that we can do into. Right now, we're just focusing on Fumed Silica because it's the easiest market for us to reach, the one we're going to have the biggest profitability. The cost related, and I like to re-emphasize this. The pilot plan that we've announced today, okay, 63% of the cost of this R&D program is covered by government grant. HPQ's there at 20 now. So it's not, and it's all covered. It's already guaranteed. It's already assured. It's already there. Okay. What's left for HPQ to pay is peanuts. And PyroGenesis also covered it. So really, this is a program that is covered by R&D expenses from the government. It is not, it doesn't depend on HPQ really funding it. Now it's more the government and PyroGenesis is having to do it. Other thing has been very interesting.
30%. Your 30% of the 2 million would be 600,000 or so.
Yeah, but we already paid 2/3 of that.
Yeah. So just in case anybody has concerns about, are you gonna have to raise more money in order to, add to the construction? That pretty much solves that answers the question right there.
Everything is there. It's within the plant, within PyroGenesis. If people want to have a good idea of where it is, you can go back to the video we made when we were talking about the QRR, where I clearly mentioned behind this wall is where the Fume Silica reactor is going to be built. That's where it's going to be built. So if you guys want to have an idea of where it's going to be built. So during 2022, okay, we financed HPQ Silica. In addition to this program, we financed a new series of tests to validate really that the reactor design can produce commercial grade fume silica at lab scale. So this is something that we've done in the past. And the key point is, and that's where starting last year, in the middle of what we were doing, the QRR thing, fume silica took a bigger importance for what we're doing, for a very simple reason. And I think I've said it many, many times. This is really a material that if we make it, they'll come and buy it. And this is I continue to be a strong advocate of that position. Whatever people say, this is literally what's going on. This is what's moving. This is where we're going. So what happened is, in Q2 2003, we started to produce commercial grade fume silica using the what we call our Fume Silica reactor, FSR. And as soon as we started to talk about this, then 3 major Fume Silica participants showed interest. Figure out who they are. So they asked us for NDAs because they wanted to test the sample material and see if the material we were looking at doing was commercially viable. All right. Or to put it differently is, how crazy were we because they didn't think this would work. And that's literally, that was a starting point of the conversation. If you look at the email exchange we had with some of those people, it was skepticism. Oh, it's real material. Oh, okay, it passes the commercial, and move on. So eventually, we knew that we had commercial material. We validated independently with the McGill University. What the McGill report tells us, fundamentally, is the HPQ Fume Silica's rheology between commercial brand A150 and A200, and their material is close to A200. Okay.
And hold on, Bernard. And a lot of us don't know what a rheology is. And
well, it's basically
A150,
the BAT
A200. It obviously sounds like you're at the upper echelon, but give us a little layman overview of that.
That's fundamentally, to bring it back to what we used to do in silicone. We used to talk about purity of material, 1N, 2N, 3N, 4N, 5N, 6N, 7N. Okay. In fume silica, all right, it's what's known as the BAT surface area. In cubic meter per gram, okay, which is the key factor of the material. All right. So that's when we say rheology, that's what it means. Just basically, does the surface area, do you have the surface area that the end buyer is looking for? So what that means is we did some materials between 135 and 185. That means the criteria is really there with those issues, was tested by us. We know it is there. We also tested it versus the other materials. So you can see by those two lines how close it is. And we're really heading in the right direction with this material. So we know we have a commercial material, okay? We know that chemically we're equal to all the product that's out there. And we also know, because experience has told us, that at lab scale, you are limited with the ability of playing with the material. But our anticipation is that we will make much higher with material with higher BAT surface area. We know that for us to get something in the 175 to 225, which was what they call the A200, is not going to be very, very difficult for us to do. Okay. No, actually, we 175, 125 is the A150. And anyway, to make a long story short, we've made a material that's A150, validated by the big boys and validated by our own independent testing. We know that when we're going to scale up the machine, we will be able to make a material of at least the A200 and probably the A300. So we will go higher up in the value of the product. Those are their starting hypothesis based on actual results. All right. This is not theory in the air, should work. This is what we've done. Right?
And I like this. By the way, if you go back for 1 second,
sure.
I just want to emphasize the last bullet point at the very bottom. People may not see that, where it says chemically, HPQ material is identical to the commercial brand A150, 200, and 300 products.
Yeah, the only thing left that we have to work on is the surface area, and we knew that. It's like it's not as easy to do with the pilot scale. Not the pilot scale, I mean the lab scale, but with the pilot scale, we will be able to address those issues and make all those sizes of material. Okay. Now, why do we say that this is such a unique situation which we have? Well, presently, okay, the only way you can make fumed silica is you have to go through 3 different steps, and each one of these steps is incredibly capital intensive. Step 1, you take quartz to silicone metal, okay? That is step 1. Traditional process is $300 million. Maybe, maybe a QRR could play into it, but the step 2 basically kills it. Because to make fumed silica, you need as feedstock silicone tetrachloride. To convert silicone to silicone tetrachloride, you got to go through this process where you dissolve it in hydrochloric acid, which forms a silicone tetrachloride. Then you add hydrogen and oxygen and you burn it. And you create fumed silica, but you also create hydrogen chlorine gas. So if you look at just building a traditional silicone metal plant, you're talking about CapEx of $300 million for 32,000 tons per year. So you're talking a CapEx around $938 per kilogram for the primary feedstock. The secondary feedstock is the one where it goes through the roof. It's the one for the technology for solar, polysilicon, those issues. It's 2.5 billion, would it be, for 20,000 tons of annual production. Okay?
Unbelievable.
So you jump up to 125. And then the last part, which is the one, where you basically take the silicone tetrachloride and you basically burn it, okay, it still costs $130 million, adds another about $11.54 per kilogram. Right now, only large vertically integrated companies control the fumed silica market because they are involved in those issues, okay? That's what it is. Which means that and fumed silica at $145.41 per kilogram of annual capacity represents a massive barrier to entry. So just the CapEx was, you understand that this is a lock market. Now, if you go look at the operation of it, because of its nature, it's a low margin industry. All right. because you have multiple steps. Yes, for the Fume Silica players, basically not the waste, you need 2NS silicone to make the silicone tetrachloride, but where it comes at the end is you end up using the waste of the polysilicon manufacturer to make your Fume Silica. So you use silicone tetrachloride. Yes, so maybe you end up wasting. That's why you accept a lower margin. It's all part of those issues. But then you still got to find somebody that's going to use your hydrogen chloride gas. And that is the barrier to building any new plants of these for these things anywhere in the world, because those are very nasty chemicals. So in a certain way, because the industry is sort of, reshuffling their waste material, they're accepting a low 20% range, 20% EBITDA margin, that is as low as 20%. But some of the key reason why they have such a low profit margin isn't the selling price. It's because they need so much energy to make that process. We're talking about 100 to 121 kilowatt hours per kilogram of fume silica. Okay? Then to that, you got to have the cost associated with handling all the dangerous chemicals, hydrogen chloride, silicone tetrachloride. If you have a leak of this, if this goes into the atmosphere, those are heavily controlled, monitored, securitized process. Those are big refinery type of chemical plants. Those are things that people don't want in their neighborhood. Okay. So you have the capex, you have the opex, and you add to this the carbon emission related tax are just going to be eroding margin, because
killing margins. Is actually to say that these new carbon taxes are killing the margins now, because it's they're killing
the margin. They're great for us.
They didn't have 5 years ago.
Yes. So that's the issue. This is where HPQ comes in with the Fume Silica reactor. I'm not joking. We're really ushering a paradigm shift in Fume Silica manufacturing. Okay. Usually, when somebody has a disruptive technology, or technology is going to change so much the thing, investors always tell you, well, the competitors basically can cut down the price to kill you, so you can't get market shares. Okay, they can't. They literally cannot attack us on price. Why? Our feedstock is quartz. They're cheap. Our Fume Silica only needs energy. Our Fume Silica only needs electricity to make it work. And then we make Fume Silica. All right. So as part of our discussion with the parties to which we signed NDA, at one point we were thinking of having a more modest progression of scaling up, starting with 250 tons per year reactor. Why that number? It was just like, okay, just take a small number, just figure out how it's working. And in our discussion with one of the parties, and that we explained this in the press release, they asked us, can you build 1,000 ton? And we said yes. And for us, the scaling up risk with regard to going from a pilot plant to a commercial plant, or even a commercial plant at 50 ton to build a one at 1,000 ton, or 250 or 500 ton, it's the same one. We're within the parameters of scaling up for a system. So for us, 1,000 tons starts to make sense with regard to the financial numbers behind this. The modeling, the return on investment looks phenomenal. So we did an internal feasibility study, and what we know now is our capex is going to be between $9 to $10 US per kilogram. Our energy consumption.
To remind everybody, the traditional guys are paying about 145.
You'll see that next page.
Per kilogram.
See that next page.
Yep.
So energy consumption, even about 60% to 65%. The variations of 65 is if Pyro converts their royalty to an equity stake into HPQ, then basically the royalty of 10% disappears, and we share the profit. So we increase the profit margin. So that's just the difference between 60 and 65, but that is really based on selling the materials that we've made at lab scale. It doesn't need us to reach those numbers. We do not need to make a higher surface area material. If we do, then those numbers jump by another about 10% to 70%. Yeah. And second of all, the carbon footprint, depending where you install it, is going to be so small that it will have absolutely no impact. The carbon tax will have no impact. And probably we will get a premium for being a green product. So put this another way. Put this in another way. It is really a disruptive tech that's about to unbend fumed silica manufacturing. This is where we are, okay? In a normal, ready market, people were going crazy. This is where we are. So, and what we announced today is the pilot plant is being built. It's going to be ready. It's going to be operational. This is fascinating. So let's go back again.
How strongest of a signal is that to the entire global market, Bernard, when you put out a press release that says our pilot plant is going to be commissioned sometime in Q2, literally 2 to 5 months from now?
Well,
that's going to set a bit of a shockwave out, no?
Yes, and what I can say is when I talk to members of the financial communities, when I talk to investors, when I talk about, investors are going to come along for the next tape, they're surprised and they're positively surprised how much we're hitting our milestone in this project. We've said we were going to do this. This is where we are. We're advancing. We're reaching all the milestones to get this moving. So it's just a question of time before it's going to be reflected in our share price. But in the meantime, we keep advancing on this. We have the discussion. We have the discussion with the industrial group we spoke last week. We really, HPQ Silica, Silica pulveris, basically, and our one-step fume silica reactor is a unique opportunity, okay? Either for traditional fume silica for a low capex process to make new material, or for end buyers going to be looking for green. So this is literally where it's going to come out. It's going to play out, and it's going to be in the coming months. Okay, not the coming years, coming months. So I feel very comfortable.
Just want to make sure we draw attention to the column on the right-hand side. The CapEx, 93% less, energy consumption, 87.5, 9% less, EBITDA margins, 3 times better, GHG, greenhouse gases, 84 to 8% less, European carbon taxes, we can't even put a percentage to that. This is outrageous how much lower it is than what the traditional guys are going to get hit with. And then the last one, the hydrochloric
hydrochloric gas.
Hydrochloric, none, 0. So when you see a right hand, usually guys, when we're looking at a table like this, George Column versus the widget industry, if you see things like 10% advantage here, 12% advantage there, 15%, your eyes start to bulge and say, wow, George Com Widgets has some real advantages over the industry. And then when you see these numbers here, I know better, but if I didn't know better, I'd almost think there's just no way anybody can disrupt any industry. I don't care what industry you're talking about. I can't believe any industry can have disruption of this magnitude on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different metrics. It's unbelievable. And I guess I just can't wait, like everybody else, until it's official. When you've got it done in a pilot plant, it's just a blow away for me. And I want to make sure everyone, took a look at that.
Yeah, and the counter side to that point is it looks so good to be true, okay, that we have to show it to people. But with today's news, the week before news, what we're saying is some people are starting to position themselves in this regard, okay? And we do have something that is not too good to be true, that is true, that will be a game-changing situation for the industry, okay, and by default for us, which will allow us to grow the industry and move forward. So we are advancing those issues. So if we understand the catalyst of what's going on, so if we're looking in 2024, okay, because I remember we talked a lot about this, and some of the fudsters I've try to put their hook on. It's not tomorrow we're going to be a full scale commercial production. I'm sorry, but it is not. It's not the full scale commercial production that's going to make our technology valuable. It is basically what's happening in the balance of this year after the commissioning is finished. Okay? This is really where it is. Once that is finished, we will have a capacity to produce 50 tons per year of fumed silica. What that gives us, well, it will allow us to sign multiple Basically offtake agreement with potential people, negotiate licenses for technologies in different geographical market area we might not want to be
Right.
physically positioned. So from the moment we got this moving, we are in a commercial position. So it's not really 2027, okay? The 2027, yes, we might be able to crunch the timeline with regard to those regards. So I'm presenting a feasible way, but this is why I said commercialization starts in 2024 once the pilot plant is able to do 50 ton. Because then
At that point, can I say in layman's terms, Bernard, does a bit of a feeding frenzy start where you're signing off takes, license agreements, joint ventures? In fact, I'm going to say just, it's possible that you may have a super partner or a super customer come in and compress his entire timeline because somebody comes along with the right resources and says, okay, this timeline is good in terms of HPQ and what it can do and with its resources. But here comes Fumed Silica, and I've got an enormous amount of resources behind me. I want to start, producing this en masse, much earlier. I'm
I don't
assuming
think
that's a possibility,
I don't
right?
think it's going to be a Fume Silica player that's going to say this, but it could actually be, because I've heard this multiple times by investor groups. Says, okay, that's a nice timeline. I want it faster. Money is no object. Speed it up, and that's feasible to do because it's just engineering of basically taking a system that works at 50 ton, making it larger by a factor of 20, which is not something unheard of. It's not redesigning the moon. It's not a rocket ship. It is just doing this and getting it moving and getting it to commercial production. So if you look at the upcoming catalysts, is finishing building and starting the commissioning of a test plant. We're here. Okay. Producing 170 kg continuous feed, thereby validating the fume silica reactor and making product between 90 to 300, thereby validating the range. Sending and selling materials to parties interested in securing offtake. I strongly believe that we will have something before the end of 2024. And when I say joint development collaboration agreement, well, just last week, we announced that an industrial group is taking a look at what we're doing with regard to our fume silica. Okay. And that fume silica and that industrial group in the coming weeks, I'll talk more about where the objective could be going, but they are taking steps to making sure that we can have something very strong and moving forward. So, key takeaway from the Fume Silica indicative timetable: end of 2024, we have a commercial technology. You can only produce 50 ton. 50 ton of selling materials at $5 a kilogram. That is not where the money is going to be. It's going to be in the licensing, the development, the growing, the value to make us go forward. It is going to be the risk that we represent to the industry or the opportunity to represent the industry. And this is being done this year. So this is really an incredible opportunity. So, and pretty soon, like I won't get into too much on those things, but remember the Quebec government, Pyrogenesis does all their management and board. We do own shares. This was done a few years, January 16. So this is what we're working here. We're also working engineering SIOX batteries initiative. I hope I will be in a position very soon to start talking more about what that represents. But that is also a very, very exciting opportunity moving forward. And we also have our green hydrogen. I think just last week, a lot of car manufacturers would prefer to be able to sell what's known as HIC, internal combustion engine, as opposed to EVs, because they know more how to build it. So this is where things are moving. And for those people that want to, the presentation is there, and because of the reglementation, everything I said is supported by sources. So there you go, George.
Yep. Oh, sorry. So all the sources you always, by the way, if everyone's watched for the first time, Bernard HPQ Silicon, at the end of every press release, you'll see multiple sources for all of their information, assumptions, and then so and so on and so forth. Bernard, very exciting. I can see now why you say that this presentation gets very well received when you make it to investors, and I'm assuming investment banks and things like that, maybe potential partners, whoever it is you're talking to, because at the end of the day, the numbers do the talking. That one slide for me is the closer. If I was an independent third party investment bank or joint venture, that's the closer for me. Now all I'm looking for is confirmation. You've got it at lab scale. You had McGill run some numbers. You release some other numbers. Now you get to do it at pilot plant scale. If you do it at pilot plant scale, if I have any interest in this industry as Georgecom Silica or Georgecom Investment Bank or whatever the case may be, private equity, whatever the case may be, I'm going to be making my move sometime in 2024 because that's just too disruptive. So exciting for me. With the caveat, listen, no matter what, you still got to execute. Everyone knows that. But less than a year ago, was June, July, suddenly you brought Fumed Silica to shareholders, something I hadn't heard about, nobody had heard about. And you said, guys, this is going to be another leg of the company, and it will be the fastest one to commercialize. And we're all like, what's Fumed Silica? Where'd it come from? Okay, whatever. Let's see what you got. And it turned into it's been nothing but, a rapid acceleration. And here we are in the first week of February, and you're announcing the commissioning of a pilot plant that's going to be up and running in Q2 of 2020, just 3 to 5 months from now. It's just unbelievable, buddy. So 2 to 5 months from now.
And
fantastic.
The key point in regard to Fume Silica, and it's the same thing that I haven't talked a lot about our battery initiative. Okay, people are asking us questions. I haven't talked about it, but the same thing is happening in the battery initiative. Is there something I've sort of learned is that sometimes it's better to under talk about what you're doing, okay, and deliver. And that's what we've been doing. And when I talk to institutional investors, whenever I issue news release, they come back and says, well, you're delivering on what I've said I was going to be doing. Okay. I understand that right now for retail investors looking at the share price, okay, they're saying to themselves, that doesn't reflect in the share price. And that's because of an abnormality of the market that is going on, but it's not just affecting HPQ, it's affecting almost all TSX venture stock. But if we continue to deliver the way we are doing, okay, we will be rewarded. Now is the time to double down and keep forward, because we have the good in this regard. In the coming weeks, I want to present to how what we're doing in the battery space really differentiates us from everybody, where our silicone expertise that comes from our French team really differentiates us and puts us in a league, in a top league, I think, with regard to silicone for batteries. And hydrogen also will gradually move into it. So we have three very strong pillars, and luckily we have three very strong pillars because you never know exactly what's the timeline. Fume Silica is the only one where I feel very comfortable about the timeline to production, and maybe even some of the battery material, but that's another story I'll talk later.
Yeah, today it's Fume Silica, and look, any company, if they just had Fume Silica and nothing else, they'd be ecstatic. And you told us quite a while ago, you said any one of our pillars are company makers. And now we're starting to see on the Fume Silica side, which has really raced ahead in the HPQ horse race. And yeah, we can't wait to see the advancements in the other legs and the other pillars for sure. But today, great press release today about the commissioning of the pilot plant milestone. Great presentation here, Bernard. With the exception,
the presentation is on our website. This presentation is on our website. People can download it.
Yep, and go through it carefully themselves. But I don't think there's a better way to go through it than to watch and listen to you go through it. But nonetheless, everyone can download it and do that again and watch it on their own. But with the exception of a few critics, and you know what? Some are fudsers, some are critics. that's okay. I always say Steve Jobs had critics, Bill Gates had critics, the Pope has critics. You know, even I've got some critics, believe it or not. So
What?
that's
You, George? I'm in a state of shock.
it's been happening. It's believe it or not, even I'm taken aback by it. But kidding aside, every disruptive company, every paradigm shifting company. I mean, we remember Apple when they came out the iPhone, and people said, you know, it's not going to live up to expectations. Who's going to use a keyboard on the screen versus a real key? All of that. So there's always going to be some of those doubters, but the rest of us, I think, are very confident, very happy with what you've been able to achieve. And credit to Peter and his team at Pyrogenesis, obviously, because this is a fantastic partnership you guys have together. And thanks for doing this, Bernard. Hats off to you again that you give your investors the insight the way an investment bank or a partner or anybody else you might be speaking to in and around the world, in and around the industry. I think it's great that you treat shareholders this way, and can't wait to have you back, my friend.
Yeah, and you know, I made the same I make the same presentation when I talk to investment banker, when I talk to the brokers, when I talk to the institutional, the group, the industrial group, and the reaction is the same one. Like, we have something unique, and
Well,
it's
look,
gonna
there's a reason why they signed NDA to explore the possibility of a 1,000-ton plant together. I guess now we know why. They see a presentation like this and say, all right, let's go. We want to be here. So let's see which shoes start to drop. Let's see who starts coming to the table. But I love the press releases like today, because I think it's yes for investors. I think it's also send that signal out to the world. And I would be very surprised if not everybody in the space has seen or is about to see that news. And congratulations, Bernard. It really is. Look, I'm the founder of Agoracom, and I know how hard it is to start a company and move it along. And I'm not doing 1/100th of what the kind of science and the kind of achievement and the kind of paradigm shifting you're doing. So I appreciate it, and I hope everyone at home appreciates it. And go get some rest. A fantastic day, and we'll see you next time. Okay.
All right, take care.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Hey Small Cap fam, I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and Agoracom? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss another great Agoracom small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.